Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Conversation. This is Richard Mwanja Exclusive, your go-to point on matters political and governance analysis here in Kenya and across the region. And with me today is your favorite think tank, renowned public scholar and former minister Ruto Arap Kirwa, who is here in studio to help me bring the day's conversation home. Let me bring him on your screen. Sir, how are you doing today?
Very well, I thank God. The cold that has pervaded this atmosphere is now subsiding. We hope there will be rain soon for us to clear the month of August.
Now we have Eldoret, the fifth city.
Yes.
Your nephew, Jonathan B., the governor of a city. How does that make you feel?
Well, it is good for the people, and we hope that the governor will have the wisdom, the capacity, and the focus in terms of seeing how we can tap into the expansion of Eldoret and the growth that is associated with the city. I thank God it went very well. The president was able to mention his first name, which was the name that was given by his mother before he brought in some way. Yeah, Kipchirchir.
Kipchirchir.
Yes. Yeah, you know Kipchirchir in our language means somebody, when he was born, there were some complications. So they had to run around. Kipchirchir and Kirwa are actually synonyms. Yeah, Kipchirchir. But Kipchirchir is his name. Kirwa is not my name. It's my father's name that I adopted after initiation. You know, you are nobody's son in the Nandi tradition until you are initiated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's when they say you are the son of so-and-so.
Allah?
So it took me about 20 years to acquire my father's name. In 1976, that is when I was initiated, and they say Kipruto Arap Kirwa.
Why are you leaving Christopher out of the picture?
No, those ones are other arrangements.
Other arrangements?
Yes.
Straight to the day's conversation, and we have just got a bombshell from ousted Secretary General of Chama Tawala UDA, Cleophas Malala, bringing forth revelations of who instigated Rigathi Gachagua's impeachment, saying those who were trying to order his impeachment were none other than Cecily Mbarire and Kimani Ichung'wah. And that also the handwriting of the two is behind the misfortunes facing ousted SG Cleophas Malala.
Yes.
And at one time you were talking about UDA Party being the Tower of Babel, being the latter-day Titanic that cannot sink. But right now, as things are, do you see that this is a house that is going to crumble down in the near future?
Well, it is going to the normal script that we in Kenya, we use parties for purposes of winning elections. Immediately after winning elections, we don't think much of the party. And parties, they have become like personality vehicle to appropriate power. And at times it's a coalition of tribes to make sure that they coalesce against another team of tribes that are coalescing. We've not given the party that organic feeling that it is an entity that ought to acquire certain structures, including the ability to have democracy within the party, the ability to bring communities together and individuals for purposes of not only appropriating power, but also responsibly protecting the integrity of a nation. Those are some of the basic tenets that any political entity must of necessity have them. So UDA, from the formation, and I was part of the formation of UDA, and I don't want to elevate myself higher than anything. I was the deputy chair of the party, one of the three deputies. We worked very well. The current president, was instrumental in promoting the party UDA because his popularity was higher than that of the party at the beginning of time. And of course, the party acquired some symbolism of resistance, the underdog, and that is what allowed the president to win. Otherwise, we had discussed with him, and I'm sure he still remembers. I would have wished that upon formation of the government, I take a bit of time off to understudy CCM in Tanzania and ANC in South Africa, with a view to borrowing the best examples and seeing how we can inculcate in our body politic so that we diminish the role of an individual, a leader, and also the role of communities, such that ODM should not be seen to be synonymous with Raila or Luos. Jubilee should not be seen to be synonymous with Uhuru or Mount Kenya region. UDA is synonymous with Ruto, the Kalenjin Nation and associated tribes. These are some of the issues that we wanted to remove. In that way, we'll be able to stem the feeling that we are just a collection of tribes. We must build a nation. And a nation needs to be built from collection of tribes, which we were at the beginning of time, at colonial time. The boundary between us and Uganda was just an imaginary boundary that was shifted 1923 by the king. Otherwise, Uganda used to come up to Naivasha. And all those parcels of land, including where you and I come from, was part of Uganda territory. Nyerere was born a Kenyan before the boundary was shifted to where it is today for Nyerere to go back. And that was 1 year after he was born. So these are some of the things that we must spend time to look at, so that our diversity should not be a source of our weakness. It should be the source of our accepting that together we are a nation. Yeah.
Very well. And for Rigathi Gachagua, should he treat this explosive bombshell from Cleophas Malala with the contempt? And also for Cleophas Malala, for other parties like Cecily Mbarire and Kimani Ichung'wah, should they understand that maybe this is a widow who is bereaved to be allowed to sulk and seek all that sympathy?
In the midst of that confusion, there is always wisdom to pick. And this is something that I feel the president is very hardworking. He's hands-on most of the time, but he runs the risk of being surrounded by sycophants. I do not treat issues of scheming against another leader as a sign of intellect or as a sign of honesty. We must accept that each one of us has certain basic weaknesses that are inherent to his body. And some of those weaknesses you cannot cure overnight. You cannot cure all the problems by impeaching Rigathi Gachagua. There is more to it than what you're thinking. And fundamentally, we must be asking, what is the curse in the position of a deputy president, deputy governor, or any of the deputies under the elective? And ask ourselves, do we need to have that system, or can we improve it? And how do you go about it? So that a deputy president should be some principal assistant to the president, principal advisor to the president. At the same time, they must learn how to work together. As I told you before, and I've said it elsewhere, I was not really for Rigathi Gachagua at the beginning of time, because, and when Mount Kenya leaders voted, majority of them never gave him the vote. They had given to Professor Kindiki. And therefore, but given the fact that he was chosen by the president, there must be some semblance of respect, so that it is not just the individual, it is that office that we are paying for as taxpayers that we want to respect. Such that tomorrow, if you are made the deputy president, you will know that yes, given time, you can also be the president. But you should not be rubbished as if you are just somebody picked from the street without any contribution to the whole system. In our tradition, and possibly I'm allowed to quote my tradition, when you go with somebody for some kind of assignment and you succeed, whether the person played 50% role is part and parcel of that success. And you don't treat him less important than any other partner. Because you see, deputy and president, they're actually partners. And as partners, whether you own 10% of the shares, or 100% of the shares, or 90% of the shares, you are shareholders. And your shares must be respected. So I feel some of this is still part of what I usually call political bad manners that is pervading our atmosphere. And that position, in my own honest opinion, in future, when you say you want to be deputy president, you can deputize somebody for 10 years, and you don't have to go for election immediately after that. So that we cure this issue of competition between legacy and succession. Because that is something I'm seeing. We saw it with the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Ruto. Now you are seeing with Rigathi. But if you are to stretch back to 1963, Jaramogi worked with Kenyatta for about 2 years. They disagreed. Joseph Murumbi came in. After 6 months, he resigned. President Moi came and served for 12 years. Now, he himself took over through the death of Mzee Kenyatta. Then his vice president was Mwai Kibaki. And I remember one of the weekly reviews copies one Friday. It was very clear. They did a lot of campaign for Kibaki. And I remember the headline was, Kibaki looks like a winner. And eventually he was appointed vice president, and he served very well. Vice president and minister for finance and economic planning. Then he was demoted to minister for health. He accepted graciously. Then there was another vice president, Josephat Karanja, who did not last 1 year. Then now Saitoti, who was sacked and reappointed. You know that Saitoti made history by being sacked as vice president and being reappointed 14 months later in a circumstance that it worried us. And of course, eventually was not given a chance to run the ticket. And of course, Musalia served for 3 months. That President Moi's term towards the end of his tenure. Then after elections, that's the only time we had stable vice presidents. The late Wamalwa served until his demise in August 2003. Then Mzee Mudiawari served for the balance of the period. Then vice president, then Kalonzo Musyoka served for a certain period during the Nusumukate government. Yeah. Then after that, you know, William Ruto and Uhuru, what happened? And now Ruto and Rigathi. So when you write in totality, the only time vice presidents or deputy presidents were not subjected to this kind of humiliation is during Kibaki's time. That goes a long way to confirm to you that Kibaki was a leader by excellence.
A leader by excellence.
By excellence.
Rightly put. And now for your friend from Alliance, Majority Leader in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah.
Yeah.
You've said doctoring other people's misfortunes in the political space is the height of political bad manners.
Yeah.
But this far, Ichung'wah has been accused of authoring the misfortune, the oust of Cleophas Malala's SG of UDA Party, and now he's been accused of being part of those who instigated the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua.
Yeah.
So for Kimani Ichung'wah, do you think he runs the risk of making so many political enemies that at some point it could bring him to political turmoil?
It worries me a lot. It worries me a lot because I've always told you Kimani Ichung'wah is one young man that I thought his future is very bright.
You thought?
I thought. I no longer have the same thoughts. But it's not because I have any problem with him. But I've realized that the whole issue of leadership has gotten into his head. And the most dangerous position is when you think you are so important as to forget that there are external forces that are checking you. And those external forces are likely to be more accurate than your own imagination. First of all, do you know under this arrangement where we don't know whether we are in government or in the opposition, one position that Raila should have bargained is to restore the parliamentary system the way it was, the figures in National Assembly, and Kimani Ichung'wah would be now the leader of minority. Because at the beginning of time, Azimio had majority. And Kenya Kwanza became majority by cannibalizing the parties in the Azimio coalition. Otherwise, we had majority, and I think that is one area where many Kenyans have not understood. Majority is not by the fact that the government or the president won the election. It's supposed to be by the numbers of members of parliament, of National Assembly in the House. So we had 177, I think against 161, plus of course there are those who are independents and so forth. So Azimio associated parties or affiliated parties had a majority in the National Assembly. And if we were to leave things that way, Kimani Ichung'wah would now be the leader of minority. And even Raila, if he was a good negotiator, in my opinion, he should have been able to negotiate and tell the president, yes, we are supporting you, but can we allow Parliament to exist the way it was at the beginning of time on the 9th of August 2022. And that could have been very good history. We would have realized Raila was bargaining for the entire opposition, and that would have assisted people now in the opposition to feel because you see, are we opposition? Are we minority? That's the question. Opposition by the Westminster system. This constitution provides for minority and majority, something that is misnomer because there are no strict rules that if you are elected at the beginning, you stay in that coalition for 5 years. They have made coalition look very shambolic. And number two, as a way of curing this democratic challenge arising from that, I feel we should engage more having a framework of Westminster system akin to the one of Britain, so that the president can win. Because go back there, president, prime minister, and the king are interesting phenomena that we've developed in Kenya. You see, at the beginning of time, Mzee Kenyatta became prime minister, 1st of June, 1963. Subsequently, he transformed himself through an election for prime minister. He's transformed himself into a president without prime minister, instead with the vice president. Now, from there, the position of vice president was immediately undermined. And Kenyatta did not go through universal suffrage, one man, one vote, 1963, to qualify to be the president. But the whole thing was transformed, and we became republic. Now the queen ceased to be head of state, because at the beginning of time, Mzee Kenyatta was head of government under the queen. Now when we became president, the two positions were mashed into one, head of state and head of government. That's why when there are resolutions done by, whether it is AU or IGAD, they say the summit of heads of state and government, which means some countries, they prefer to keep the system where the king or the president, like in Ethiopia, is head of state, but the prime minister is head of government. Therefore, when there is assembly of heads of state and government, typically they should be represented by both the prime minister and the president. Here in Kenya, the president is head of state and government because we copied the system, but we corrupted it. So that the president now believes as if he's the king. He's not the king, he's not our king. Because the king is hereditary. And president is through election. One man, one vote. But to go back to that, my thinking is we should have a system where the president is elected directly by the people. We have members of parliament. We have members of parliament across the house. Then we should also have shadow cabinet. Shadow cabinet to mirror the ministries in the government. So that it becomes unattractive for me, John Mbandi, to want to go to Ministry of Finance that I was critical of yesterday. I should criticize Minister of Finance from that outside position, from the opposition, so that I be given the first chance to reply to the budget proposals by the minister in charge of finance as a shadow minister. Or if I'm shadow minister for agriculture, the ministry I led, then I should be able, when there is budget from that ministry, I should be able to give counter proposal in a systematic way, but not telling me in the street to prepare another budget, the way the president has been telling us.
So they come to Kiru as the go-to person for advisory on how best we can recalibrate issues affecting that docket.
Yes, that docket. I remember it worked very well when I was Minister for Agriculture, and Bet was the chairman of Agriculture Committee, Franklin Bett.
Franklin Bett.
He could come to my ministry and highlight some of the issues and take some of the trips around the country, come back to me, we discuss, and we deal with that issue. So there should be shadow cabinet by the opposition, in short. And the pay is not an issue. Even if we were to spend 10 billion per year, we'll have spent in 5 years 50 billion. To have those offices with some semblance, with some basic staff for purposes of research and the preparation for me to give counter to the budget
argument.
Counter argument to the budget proposed by the government.
A shadow cabinet that is not part of a handshake.
It's not part of a handshake. Shadow cabinet that is actually
independent,
the mirror image of the government.
Sure.
And the leader of majority should be the person with majority of seats in parliament, not the person who won the presidency, not from the party of the president. Because you see, Ishuma now is leader of majority, and some of those people are in the opposition or have been in the opposition. Let the majority be a product of an election, not this miscalculation, cannibalizing, and general bad manners that pervades our atmosphere. Yeah.
Lastly, let's circle back to Kimani Ichung'wah, and you've accused him to be one who still hasn't got hold of the juvenile excitement that comes with power. But then again, what risk does he what risk could he run into should he continue with this exaggerated sense of self-importance as a leader?
You know, at times when you're in position of leadership, you don't have time to look at the mirror. You wake up in the morning, you run to your office, you don't have time to reflect. And that is something that I would want to assist him. He runs the risk of being destroyed by his own momentum. You see, political momentum is like riding a bicycle downhill. At times it moves at a speed that you are not able to control. And then you can be destroyed by that momentum. You see, imagine just coming from the other side of your home, around the river Kimoson, near the Catholic Church.
Yeah, sure.
And you lose your brakes. The best is to just divert to the bush immediately. Otherwise, you'll get into River Kimoson and you'll be carried by water, and I know you are not a good swimmer. So I get worried for him. He's a bicycle rider, and he should be checking the brakes of the bicycle. Otherwise, he runs the risk of being destroyed by that momentum. And he should realize also currency in politics is something that needs to be renewed. The moment you think you are current, things may move in a way that you realize on the ground. The people who used to be with you have gone. And I want him, one of these days when he goes to the constituency, as he's talking, he should be looking at people. At times when people leave you, when you look at them, they move away their eyes. It tells you there's a problem here. It's like if I came to your place, and by the time you have children, then I realize your children are very suspicious of me. It tells me there's something you've been talking about at home that is not so good. Children don't know how to hide. Yeah. So also voters don't know how to hide. They will easily tell you that we are not with you.
Very well.
Yeah.
So Ichung'wah could be writing his own political obituary.
Or preparing the notes for that. Yeah, because I told you, the only time you piece up obituary is when the person is dead and buried.
When you're dancing on his grave.
On his grave.
Talking of which, we're going to discuss matters to do with the future of Raila Odinga in the world of politics. But how about we now cross over to this insightful segment that is Heroes Corner with Kipruto Arab Kirwa. Whom do you have today on the show, sir?
Well, the man of the day is one Samuel Kibiebe Ngeny.
Come again?
Samuel Kibiebe Arab Ngeny, former MP for Aldai.
Aldai?
Aldai in Nandi County.
Which now Marian Kitani is the...
Yes, the MP.
MP for.
Yeah. And of course, Aldai that time used to come all the way up to near the Kapsabet town.
Oh, really?
Because there were only 3 constituencies. It was Mosop, Tindret, and Aldai. So now there are about, I think, 5 constituencies because there is Mgwen, there is Chesume, Yeah, I think there are 5 constituencies or 6. Yeah, and Nandils and Tindits, I think there are 6 constituencies. So there used to be 3. And Samuel Ngeny tried in 1974 at a very early age. I think he was about 34 or 31 there. And he lost to Simon Chege at that time. But his posters came all the way to Kitale. And he was seeing this young man, because, young people, they like one of their own. So he lost that election, but 1979, he made it with a bang, and was rewarded with the position of Deputy Speaker. And he served very well with distinction.
Really?
Yeah, he was the Deputy Speaker of our National Assembly. At that time, it was, of course, one house. The Senate was not there. And he served the people of Nandi, the people of Aldai, and the people of this country. He's one of the most outspoken of the leaders of Nandi, very articulate. Of course, having gone to Dar es Salaam University at that time before he came and became the principal of Kapsabet Boys. That is when Kapsabet was performing very well.
Allah.
At a very early age. You can realize it was in his 20s. Then he resigned, I think, to go to try his hand in politics. He's an elder now, staying at home at Kaboi, Nandi, where he was born.
Allah.
He's a man that I respect a lot. He's somebody that I admire. I wish we had enough of them in Kenya. Yeah, he is principled. And of course, with the regime of President Moi, if you are principled, your days are numbered. So in 1988, they bungled him out under the so-called voting system, because they felt he was growing faster than he should. But I'm happy he's still strong.
So they wanted to clip his wings?
They wanted to clip his wings. You see, you remember in 79, they came as 3 keys, kifunguo. One key was Henry Koskei, the other key was Stanley Meto, the third key was Samuel Aramngen. So by 88, about 10 years, a period of 10 years, all the 3 were bungled out. But Ngatwin said the key was to open and bring the goodies to the people of Nandi. But now he said, now these keys imefunjika. And they were bungled out.
They were bungled out?
Oh, completely. None of them remained.
For current House leaders, talk of Moses Wetangula, Deputy Speakers Gladys Shole, is there something that they can borrow leaf from Ngeny?
Yeah, in fact, they can borrow, and even all of us, because you see, apart from being Deputy Speaker at that particular time, he is full of wisdom. He's written extensively about the Nandi nation, especially some of the old stories, the folklores of the community. And he's somebody well healed in terms of the issues that hold the community. He belongs to the generation that is ahead of me. He must be now approaching his 80s. And therefore, they know the Nandi traditions better than me. And he himself is a child of 2 worlds, having gone to school very well, at the same time having gone through the traditional Nandi way.
So he's a true son of Koitalel Arap Samoei?
He's a true son, and he doesn't brag about it. But he's one of the few Nandis that I respect their intellect. I'm telling you, I respect his intellect. The other one, of course, is Kemalat, and a few others that, and the late Jean Maria Serone.
Oh.
Those are some of the Nandis, when they went to school properly. Some of the guys who just go to school and people do their assignments, and even term papers.
But they now have PhDs, which you don't have.
Well, PhD without...
You could just be another envious man out here, sir.
But I've done my coursework, not like you. I've finished my coursework and I passed with...
In the footsteps of Hassan Joho, I too will go to the best university in the world.
No. For you, I trust. Hassan Joho, I'm not sure.
Well, that point takes us to the wrap of today's conversation on Richard Mwenje Exclusive, discussing a raft of issues shaping Kenya's political landscape. We thank you so much for giving us company. Mheshimiwa, thank you so much for your insights.
It's my pleasure.
Our next conversation is about coalitions, whether they are home of betrayals or they're going to help Kenya to become that much envisioned country.
Wonderful.
I really look forward to that conversation, but thank you so much for coming through.
Asante.
Asante sana. Until we meet next on this show, do enjoy the rest of your viewing.